So today I went to do something called Pesso Boyden System Psychomotor. What on earth is Pesso Boyden System Psychomotor? Essentially, it is a type of group therapy. I came across it because it was mentioned in The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. If you're interested in trauma recovery, it's probably at the cutting edge of what is understood about how trauma manifests and is stored in the body and how one can go about releasing it and integrating it. And amongst other things that Bessel mentions in the book was PBSP, Pesso Boyden System Psychomotor. Pesso Boyden, that's actually two names. I don't know their first names. I'm going to find out what their first names are. Created in 1961 by Albert Pesso and Diane Boyden Pesso. I guess they were married. Pesso Boyden System Psychomotor is the most advanced therapeutic system available for emotional re-education or reprogramming. PBSP heals past emotional deficits using unique processes called structures that help clients to identify emotional deficits and create new memories. These new memories, quote unquote, provide symbolic fulfillment of the basic developmental needs of place, nurture, support, protection, and limits. I'm not going to go on with that. So Albert Pesso and Diane Boyden they were dancers, and they worked with Martha Graham, I believe, in the 60s, perhaps in the early 50s. Initially, this system they created was a way for dancers to explore their kind of outer limits, get in touch with the reasons why they might not be able to express themselves physically, what kind of emotional blocks were getting in the way of certain ways of expressing themselves. And as they refined the process, they started to notice that it seemed to have a profound effect on the way the dancers felt, especially if they started talking. For example, one of the dancers might talk about a problem they had with their father. So anyway, I came across this via Bessel van der Kolk's book. I started EMDR therapy around Easter, which has been fantastic. EMDR stands for Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing. I'm not going to go into too much about that. You can Google EMDR and find out loads about it. The woman that I'm doing it with also includes Dzogchen, Tibetan Buddhist practices, mindfulness practices, breathing practices, as well as the EMDR. It's been nothing short of miraculous for allowing me to become really present with my feelings, to stop thinking about them and analyzing them, to get out of my head, drop into my body, and allow those feelings to kind of spread out from often a localized point of tension, usually in like an anxious point in my chest. And they kind of spread out through the body, and I have a feeling of energy being released, and then they dissipate, and the tension and the emotion kind of peaks and then rolls away and doesn't come back. If we're talking about heartbreak and anxiety and certain pains. Anyway, the thing about EMDR is it's really good for processing actual trauma, memories based on points of trauma. Being shouted at, assaulted in some kind of a way. It works really well with individual historic moments. It struggles more with the kind of generalized chronic neglect that you might have experienced with parents that aren't able to meet your needs, where you're suffering, you're kind of traumatized from things not happening. So it's hard to kind of pull up a memory of a thing that didn't happen. Like being seen, nurtured, validated, hugged, just taken care of in the way that you needed as a child. And of course, parents fail all the time. I will fail if I become a parent. We all fail. We're not able to meet all the needs of our children. So this isn't a parent bashing video. We're just talking about processes to heal. Anyway. This is where Bessel van der Kolk came up with a sentence in his book which really jumped out at me, which was a therapist working with someone suffering from quite chronic neglect from childhood will come up against a wall at some point because they will realize that they've, integrated the traumas and helped the person deal with their feelings, but there will be big gaps in their psyche. A big hole in the jigsaw puzzle of their psyche, which is where they weren't told I love you by their parents, or they weren't hugged, or they just weren't paid the attention that they needed. And the problem is that although you would think all you need is to find another person to do the thing that was missing, your psyche can't be tricked. And actually that part of you which really resides in your unconscious needs to be healed by somebody who is a facsimile of the original person who wounded you. You actually search out the healing from the person that wounded you, which is also why we tend to end up in romantic relationships with people who have the negative qualities of our caregivers. So we're actually going out into the world looking for a mate, and our unconscious find somebody who is a rough fit for our father or mother, or various combinations of, in the hope that now this person is going to finish off the work that the parents didn't do. And of course, because this person's just like our parents, they're often equally unable to do it. And it's also not their job as a romantic partner, because they also want stuff from you. Whereas a parent-child relationship is usually one way. So what Bessel van der Kolk came up with was that when you're dealing with these holes in the psyche of your client, what you discover as a therapist is that you can't heal that hole because you're the wrong person doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. The healing also kind of needs to take place in the past, which is impossible. And that's where PBSP comes in. What happened for me today was I met with 5 people. There was 5 of us, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Normally there would be more. There were 2 therapists there, male and female, and then 2 other guys. So there were 3 of us as clients. There were possibly going to be a woman there as well, and other people cancelled for illness. And essentially how it works is you do what's called a structure. And a structure, in my case, I sat down, I'm the client for about an hour. There are other people, everyone's in the room. So first of all, you're witnessed. That's a big deal. If you were to consider doing this, you have to be aware that this is not a one-to-one. This is group therapy. And that can obviously be very problematic for people. Anyway, first of all, you might lay out a map of your family, of the important people, using objects. And in this case, the place we had a big tray covered in shells and crystals and jewelry. So I mapped out my family. I put a big shell for my father. My mother was a crystal next to it. Then my brothers and sisters and my sister's children, and a dream I'd had. Anything that's important, you kind of create this visualization in space. And then I started to talk about various problems I had with my father specifically. The therapist immediately starts witnessing me. So she creates a witness who is an imagined person next to her, who might say something like, I witnessed you looking extremely afraid when you just told me that story. So there's a mirroring and a witnessing going on. And then at some point we start to talk, this is where it starts to get beautiful. It starts to talk about ideal father and ideal mother. And the ideal father might start off as an imagined person next to you. What did you want to be said to you? And as I talk and I tell stories, the therapist might say, perhaps your imaginary father might actually have said something like, if I had been there, I would have made sure that all of your needs were always met and I would never have shouted at you, for example. But this is where it gets really interesting, because at some point you invite one of the other people in the room, not the therapist, to play the role of your ideal father. And in my case, there was a chap there, I won't mention his name, who came and sat next to me. I don't know this guy. He sat next to me, put him up on cushions so he was bigger than me to recreate the sense of me being about 4 and my father being really big. But this is an ideal father. This is not the father that wounded me. This is the father that I wish I had. And we start to give him a script to say to me what I always wish I'd heard. And with the help of the therapist and the witnessing and the person actually saying the text, and I'm dropping into my body and feeling the feelings, and then my ideal mother shows up. We created her out of cushions in the end because there wasn't a woman there to do it. And at some point this man put his hand on my chest. He had a hand on my shoulder, kind of tension points and reassuring. And it was incredibly moving. not least because with the help of the therapist and with this person, I started to actually get in touch with the feelings of not having received this thing and now hearing it. And even though this isn't my father and it's just a man I just met and all the place is wrong, nonetheless, the global effect and the imagining of it works. It absolutely touched the sorest part of me. And as we described this ideal father imagine sitting on the sofa with my father holding my shoulder, comfortable, regulating my breathing, co-regulating breathing, sitting with me, holding me, telling me that he loves me, saying all of these things that I never heard, that never happened. I never experienced that at all. And it was moving. I wept bitterly, deeply. And this went on for about an hour. And it's just astonishing. I got to experience something I've never experienced in my life, which was the feeling of having an adult man care for me in a fatherly role. And I can feel that it's touched that part of me. It connected with that part of me that longed for it for 48 years, 50 years. And it's not a one-stop shop, but I mean, something changed today in me from one go. I'm lighter, happier, freer. I feel lighter. And I can conjure up the image in my mind's eye of this ideal father who doesn't look like my real father. I get a sense of his energy and his feeling and his presence. I can go to that place whenever I need it to remind myself that I'm loved by my father. This is huge. It's huge. And I think with the psychoanalysis that I've had, which helped me to really get in touch with a deep understanding of things, moving on to EMDR, which helped me get to a deep understanding and ability to manage my feelings and manage my emotional flow and actually manage my traumatic feelings. And now the next step to actually go in and start to fill in the gaps, the bits that are missing. Nothing short of miraculous. I cannot recommend it enough. And the woman that organised it, I'll link to her website down below. The woman who organised it's wonderful. The chap whose house you're in is wonderful. It was, yeah. The only thing I would say from my experience now, because I've been in therapy for a long time, if you've never done therapy before, this is going to be a lot. And you don't have to do all the things that I just mentioned. You don't have to have somebody there. You can just talk. You don't have to do it. But my thought is you need to be a little bit aware of the therapeutic process, a little bit in touch with yourself. Because it's a lot to be weeping with a strange man holding you or a stranger. And I did it in reverse. I did it for him afterwards. And I became his ideal father and I placed my hand on his heart. And at some point I held his hand and I said all these things that he needed to hear. This grown man who I only met this morning. And it was deeply, deeply moving. I was moved to be in that place. I felt his pain. I felt the ebbing of that pain as he calmed down, as my words landed in him and touched that sore spot. And he calmed down and I calmed in that place and we were together. I was with this human being and I felt very close to him. It was astonishing. Yeah, that's kind of it. I felt like I needed to get this out now and post it up and share this with anybody that might be interested. It's just, yeah, miraculous. And I start to understand now that it's not enough to just talk about your feelings. You have to say the right things and you have to hear the right things. And sometimes you really do just have to feel them. And expressing your feelings through words is great, but learning to sit and allow those feelings to kind of crest within you and wash away, certainly for me, it's having quite a profound impact. And I started at smiling at people on the tube. I got 2 people to smile at me on London Underground. Didn't get them to do it. I caught eyes with somebody and I smiled and they smiled back. And I remember when it's there, when that happiness, when that lightness is just behind your face, you smile so easily. And I'm probably radiating or coming across as just yeah, approachable, friendly, warm, open. Yeah, I feel good. Amazing. It was a 6-hour day from 10 until 4 doing this, with a lunch break and lots of chatting in between. It was, yeah, wonderful. So yeah, I will link to the website down below. That's it, I think. I hope this has been useful. I do have a few other videos on my channel about mental health. They're quite old now. Go check them out if you want to. I might do some more because this is fun. Forgot how much fun it is to just chat to a camera. That sounds weird. Okay. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Hit me up with a question. Drop a comment below, or a question if you got anything you want to ask me. I'm not so busy at the moment, so I can answer your questions. And yeah, and subscribe if you haven't already, and you will get notifications for one video every 18 months. All right, thanks for watching. Cheers.